What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Mewzings Podcast Studio. I am very excited today to be joined by Brian, aka Bigby McFly. How you doing today, Brian?
Doing good. How are you, man?
Too many B's.
Yeah.
Brian, Bigby.
Yeah.
I'm doing
Big
good.
D.
How's the new year treating you?
Pretty good. Yeah. Just rolling into it, and trying not to have a catastrophic event right off the bat.
That's good. We're only a few days into it, so I think we're off to a good start so far, but it is early in the game.
Right.
Well, it seems like I'm collecting, it's like Pokemon. I got to collect them all. I've had you and Brandon and Travis on here and Mike from Lunch Money. I feel like we got Colossus Collector, like all the people in this circle. I'm checking them off one by one, man. It's so cool.
Yeah, Rohan. You got to get
Rohan, yep.
from What's on the Comic Rack.
I'm trying, yep. Trying to get him on, trying to get JP on. Yeah, I'm trying to collect all you guys and make sure that I have everybody on. I really enjoy this community that you guys have created. Lots of really, really cool people in this community. So it's been easy to find good guests for the podcast because I just ask you guys and you're like, hey, check with this person, and there we go.
Yeah, no, we've got a really good group of guys. Like early on when I joined YouTube, I was rolling along pretty good, getting subscribers and everything. And I'm like, what can I do to get to know other creators better and grow kind of a community? And so I came up with the idea of this thing. I called it hashtag comic book shout out.
Yeah.
And everybody did videos about other people that they liked and followed. And then other people, we would all follow them and then invite them in, and they were all making videos, and we made a big compilation. And I need to get back to doing that.
Yeah, I think
everybody's telling me to do it, and then the guys are still doing the same idea.
I think Travis.
Take one quick shout out anymore.
I think Travis mentioned that. Yeah, he was saying how many people joined his channel after that. After you guys did that, that was really cool.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
And you and Travis go way back.
We do, junior high school.
I did not. Yeah, I did not realize that till I had him on. That was super cool.
Yeah, I guess, who was it? Yeah, you had, was it Cheddar? Did you have Cheddar Comics on?
I did, yep.
And after that, Travis was like, hey, do you know that we both know Cheddar's dad?
Yeah.
Back in the day. I used to shop at his stores before Cheddar was ever born.
That's crazy.
And he had Cheddar was asking, so Cheddar reached out to me. He's like, did you really go to my dad's stores? And I was like, yeah. He's like, tell me about it. And I was like, the first one I remember going to, it was inside a nursery, a plant nursery.
Oh, wow.
And so you would walk through, it was like you're going through a jungle. You're going through all of these, these calm leaves and everything. And you come through it, here's this big wall of comics. It was something out of Indiana Jones.
That's so cool, man. On the other side of the trees lie the comics.
Right. And then later he moved to a regular store, but that was how he got started out, was he was in the back of a nursery.
Oh, man. That's so cool. That's one of those things where you just look back and you have your first memories of going in comic shops. I mean, I don't think I'll ever forget that. Like for me, it started with the Circle K down the road from my house. I remember it was when my parents would first let me ride my bike somewhere like by myself, and I would go up the road to the Circle K and grab comics off the rack there, off the magazine rack. It wasn't spinner racks back then, but there were magazine racks with comics, and it was so cool.
Yeah, we still had spinner racks when I was a kid, but yeah.
Yeah, I think grocery stores, I remember pulling a couple off of spinner racks at grocery stores because I remember there'd be a aisle, and they would have like one spinner rack in the aisle there, kind of by the magazines. So I did get to pull a few. I can say that I did that, but nowadays you just don't see them. We have the direct distribution and comic shops and all of that. So
Right.
there's a whole, several generations that won't get to experience the excitement of that. And
Right.
the fact that you didn't really know, like way back in the day, you didn't know what book was coming out. Like it was just a surprise. It was sitting there.
Right. I remember picking up ASM 299 on a Fred Meyer uh, book rack,
Yeah.
looking at it. I'm like, whoa, this guy's style is crazy. It's like it's not really the normal Marvel style. It's got like this animated
Yeah.
aspect to it. And I'm like, I love this. And so, yeah.
So it's safe to say you're a fellow, or at least you were a McFarlane guy back in the day.
Yeah, he was definitely a groundbreaking artist. He changed a lot of what was
Yeah.
expected of artists. Before you had to fit the mold, how to draw comics the Marvel way. And then he really
Yes.
broke the mold.
Yeah, he really did. He was always a big inspiration for me as somebody who wanted to draw. Just the excitement and fun that he brought to the pages was huge.
Right. Yeah. He definitely a talented guy. I started buying comics off the spinner rack way before that, but
Right.
oh,
So you remember the back in the day, where the page layouts and things weren't as exciting as he made them.
I mean, there's still some really talented artists back then, but yeah, he definitely broke the mold as far as like, yeah, the page layouts and as an artist, like I really started playing with my page layouts after seeing what he had done and
Yeah.
seeing like, oh, you can do that. You can break the edge of the panel, or you can do, and do a lot of that kind of stuff that you didn't normally see. So
Yeah, he broke a lot of rules
for sure.
back in the day. Yeah, he's always been a rebel. I'm actually, my next episode that's coming out on Monday is a big breakdown of his style. So going over like all the different tropes and things in his work, and doing a collaboration with this really cool gal named Emily. She has a YouTube channel called Learn Comics with Pancake, and she breaks down different artists and does in-depth studies of their work. So we did a collaboration where we did that on Todd's work, and it was a super fun time.
That's
Just going
awesome.
through, I hadn't looked at a lot of that stuff in a long time, so it was really neat to go through it and really, take a fine tooth comb to it and study it in that fashion.
Right. So what was your first comic off the rack then at a store?
Oh man, it's hard to remember. Like I still have them, but I can't remember exactly which ones were first. Um, there's some Malibu stuff in there and some other early 90s stuff. So for me, it would have been more like early 90s, um, mainly Marvel. And I think I gravitated more towards Marvel back then. Um, and then I didn't really start seriously collecting until I was about 16, and I was working at one of the comic book shops that Todd McFarlane co-owned here in Washington.
Oh,
And
really? That's
so,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
That is
So,
web?
yep, Spider's Web in Puyallup, Washington. So that was my first job at 16, and that was like opened up a whole new world for me. And of course, back then it was all the Image stuff and
Right.
Spawn and Wildcats and Jim Lee and Todd and
It's a great
Wilson, all
time.
those guys. Yeah. So that's kind of that was my really, when I started seriously collecting, and I haven't looked back. How about you? When did you first? I mean, obviously you're pulling stuff off spinner racks, so you were a little bit ahead of me on your collecting.
Well, when I was a little kid, my parents would take me to like the flea market in Portland, the Sandy Bar Flea Market.
Oh, nice.
And so I remember seeing, gosh, I must have seen some incredible comics, but I don't,
Probably in retrospect, and you didn't even realize.
I remember they bought me like a package that had like just some random Spider-Mans in it. And it had like the second or third appearance. It's the Spider or Punisher is in there with Nightcrawler.
Oh, cool.
And so it's a 2-issue story arc. I remember reading it and I'm like, why is the devil a good guy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But yeah, personally buying off the spinner rack, G.I. Joe 26,
Oh,
the
nice.
secret origin of Snake Eyes. So I was like, well,
Very
if they're going
cool.
to tell Snake Eyes' origin, I gotta find out what's going on
Definitely.
here. And then later on, getting into superhero stuff like X-Men 193. Uh,
Yeah. So you've been in the game a long time.
first in continuity Firestar.
Yeah. Yeah. All the keys that we didn't realize were keys back in the day because that term didn't really exist.
Right. I do remember. So I've always been kind of I owned two shops for a long time. But before that, when I was just a high school kid, uh, I remember like when sports cards were really big, and like I was into sports cards too. I'm a well-rounded nerd, Magic the Gathering, comics,
So
sports
yeah, you
cards.
and on the sports card thing, you and me are both right there. I did have some Magic cards, but I sold them.
Yeah, I
But
just
yeah,
sold most of my stuff just recently, but I remember the rookie cards being a big thing, and I was like, the rookie cards are really big. I wonder if like rookie characters, so like first appearances, I wonder if that's gonna be a really big thing.
you're
And
ahead of your
I started
time.
picking stuff up based on that idea, and it served me pretty well.
That's awesome, man. That you
I got
you
on the
kind
key train a little early,
of had a little foresight there.
right? So
So you've been collecting a really long time. Did you ever take any breaks from collecting, or has
I
it been
did. I
pretty?
took a long break. 2008. I sold both of my stores when my youngest son was born, and it got to be where I would take home like a stack every week of what was the new releases and read everything and then bring it back and put it back on the rack, so I could tell everybody about what my picks and clicks were, what I thought was great. So I was up to snuff on most of the storylines on everything coming out. And it was a job. Some of the stuff you really didn't want to read,
Yes.
but you had to know what was going on. Because I wanted to be a good salesperson and give good recommendations to my clientele. So
Right.
yeah. So once we closed the stores, or not closed, sold the stores, I just kind of, I had my collection, and I took a big long break, and then we had some stuff come up where with some financial problems, and I ended up having to sell my collection. It was during the big housing crisis, and
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, my business got impacted really bad during that time.
did not get hardly. I had was a ton of, probably like close to 20 boxes, 20 long boxes. It was all silver and bronze, marble.
Yeah.
So I had almost a complete run of ASM. I had just picked up an X-Men #1.
Oh my
I
goodness.
had a Hulk #1. Um, I had a whole bunch of stuff, and it was a thing where I needed the money to solve some problems, and I think when I ended up getting just under $2,000 for everything.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I went to every store and nobody had the money. And
yeah.
they're like, "Oh, we know this guy. His last name is Sharky,
Mm.
um, and he'd be willing to look at stuff." And so I brought everything out and I showed it to him, and he's like, "So I understand you need about $2,000." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay." And I'm
Oh
like, "Okay, so
geez.
what did you want to buy?" And he's like, "No, everything."
Damn.
And he's like, "I know nobody's offering you anything for it. So
Yeah, that
if you need that,
hurts.
if you really need that money, I'll give it to you, and you got to give me everything." So
That's called
I was
being between
out of comics completely. Like
being between a rock and a hard place, right?
yeah. And so I was completely, I just was like, all right, that's it. I'm done. That put a really bitter taste in my mouth for things.
Yeah.
And, so I was out of that. And then for a while I was into playing now, or I got back into playing Magic in about, 2016, 2017. And,
Okay.
I was, going into a shop, and I was playing the tournaments. I did pretty well. I would amass some credit and everything. And that was kind of my spiel was I'd pay the entry fee, you play in these things called drafts where you open sealed product and you make your deck. So you're getting cards when you get in. And then if you win, you get more cards plus some credit. So I would roll that credit, keep the cards, pay for my entry fees with the credit. So usually I was only paying like one or two entry fees, and then amassing a bunch of credit, amassing a bunch of cards, and I would sell off all the cards and start over again, and you know, getting some money that way. And one day I walked in and they had about 100 long boxes of comics on the tables in the store, and I was like, "You guys don't do comics? What are you doing?" And they said, one of the owner's friends passed away, and they were out near the Tri-Cities, I guess, and the local shop out there offered her, I think it was like $10 or $15 a long box.
Oh, geez.
And he's like, "No, just give them to me. I'll get you more money than that." You know, and so I started to walk over to the boxes, and they go, "Oh, don't even think about there." A shop owner was here, or an expert was here, and he already picked out all of the keys and good stuff. I was like, "Oh, all right." So I played in the first round of the tournament, and I won pretty quickly, and I walked over to the boxes. I started flipping, and the first book I flipped to was the G.I. Joe Special #1, the McFarlane homage Snake Eyes issue.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a $200 comic. And I'm like, okay. And the next issue I flipped to was the last issue of G.I. Joe. And I'm like, well, that's pushing $200 also. And I go, so what's the deal on the comics? And they go, oh, they're, what were they? They're $3 a piece, or 5 for $10. And I'm like, I'm going to drop from the tournament.
No kidding.
And I started going through all the boxes, and I think I used all my credit, and I left with, I think, was it 3 or 4 short boxes of comics. And I had made myself a rule at one point. I was pulling stuff, and I'm like, all right, it has to be worth like $30 or more for me to pull it. And I'm like making these, and at the end they're like, did we screw up? And I'm like, kind of. And
you should have said, ask your expert.
Yeah. And I said, just out of curiosity, what did he pull? And they go, oh, we've got him down here. Well, he pulled the first Deadpool, the first Cable, and I think the first Gambit. Those were the 3 books he pulled out of everything. But there was like a full run of Watchmen in there. There was like just insane stuff that I was pulling out. I'm like, I mean, all of the late issue stuff for Transformers was in there. All of that. I was just like, okay, this is insane.
Yeah. So that was kind of what got you back into collecting.
Yeah, I came home and my wife was like, did you have a stroke? You were done with that. What's wrong with you? I was like, but this was dumb not to get it.
Yeah.
And then I started watching YouTube and like different people, hunting comics. James Hunter was one of the guys that I first started watching, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And kind of inspired me to start going around and doing garage sales and poking around at junk shops and stuff. And so I started finding like Golden Age stuff at junk shops, and just, the rest is history, I guess.
Rekindled the passion for it. Took that little bit of that bad taste out of your mouth.
Yeah. So, and things have gone pretty well.
I was going to say, you haven't looked back.
Right.
So now I wanted to ask you about doing how long you ran your shops.
So we started in 1993.
Wow.
And then sold them in 2008. So that's 15 years there. But then I also was doing shows and had all kinds of inventory before that.
So that's impressive. You guys survived the big like image boom and the crash and the comic market crash and all of that.
Yeah, I got in right as the crash was happening. Basically, 93 was the crash.
Yeah,
the crash was in the midst of going off in 93. So I got in at a low point, and I learned to survive at a low point, and that served me pretty well because then I knew what the worst conditions were, and I knew I could make it then. So I went through all of that. I got to ride the Pokemon boom. I was smart enough not to get totally. I mean, they probably long term were pretty smart, but they didn't. They were like putting all of their money into Pokemon, and then when it crashed, they sold it for nothing. Now it's worth money nowadays.
Yes.
For a while there was boxes of, first edition, Pokemon or first edition Jungle and stuff that you could pick up for almost nothing for a while.
You're right.
So, but yeah, so I diversified. We really made our role playing section much more robust in the store. We got more. We expanded our dice selection massively. We got into miniatures. We started carrying puzzles. So really kind of diversifying the store rather than putting it all back into Pokemon.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of the shops that I know that survived, it was through that diversification and offering other things that were popular at the time or gaining popularity.
Right. Yeah.
Because
that was it. Pokemon was insane. I remember days where you're counting. I remember counting out like $10,000 in one day. It was just like, this is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. My friends were like, oh, so when are you buying yourself a new car? I'm like, no, that's not what you do during times where it's good. You need to reinvest.
Yes. Yes. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your background in art and when the love of art started. Was that love of art sparked via comics, or was that something you were into prior to getting into comics?
I always liked drawing. My mom has a drawing that I did somewhere packed away, but she said I had crayons and I was sitting at the table and she's like, what are you drawing? And I'm like, an elephant. And she looked at it and she goes, oh my God, it's an elephant. Like, most kids, it's like, bang, and you're just a blob. And she's like, it's an elephant. And I was like, so, the old Rankin and Bass Hobbit movies.
Yes.
I was really inspired by those cartoons to try to mimic that style. I have some sketchbooks that are really terrible from when I was like 10 and 11 years old. And like I have drawings of horses that they look like alligators. Their mouths are all wrong. And, yeah, I always wanted to draw. And then, I don't know, I think kind of just that generation that I'm in, we always wanted to do whatever we were into. So like when we were into sports cards, we liked to play sports, uh, when we were into comics, we wanted to create our own comics. When we were into video games, we were designing our own like video game stuff. Even though we couldn't program, we were drawing it out on paper. Like, well, this is how this game would work,
Yep.
This kind of stuff. So we were always wanting to be on the creative side of that.
I remember when they first started releasing some of the map editors for Doom. I used to make maps for Doom and then get on and play them with my buddies and test them out and stuff. So I'm right there with you on that, wanting to be creative in the things that we were enjoying.
See, I'm going to show my age, but like Atari 2600, I was there when that came out.
Yes.
So we were pretty obsessed, and our parents were very worried about the amount of screen time we were getting even back then. So
yes, for sure. So fast forwarding to today with your art, you have done a lot of really cool pieces that I've seen that you have gifted to some of your friends or done commissions and things. Like for me, I find like when I did that thing for Ryan, that was one of my most fulfilling things, creating that Colossus piece for him. Like I find a lot of joy in making something special for people and gifting it to them. And seems like you're kind of right along those same lines. Like that brings a lot of joy to you to be able to make something unique for somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun. I do have a lot of regrets about not. I was accepted to the Cooper School right out of high school, but I didn't go.
Oh man.
I saw my parents were they were in financial problems a lot when I was a kid, and I didn't want to be that way. I didn't want to get into debt, and so I didn't want to get student loans. And I was like, oh, I'll get a job and I'll save up, and then I'll go. Well, I got a job, and then I met a gal, and then we got married and had a kid. And so right when you were getting into all that image stuff, like people were like, I was interviewed a little while ago, and they were like, your art stuff, what happened were like, there were these opportunities along the way. I'm like, oh, I remember Image was like, come down to San Diego and become part of the Image crew, sending your
Yep.
submissions and everything. We just had a kid. The timing wasn't right. Just a lot of things. I had a buddy who, Brian Joins, we went to high school together. He's a writer for comics. And he had a creator on title called The Seven Guys of Justice. And, he asked me, he said, hey, my artist left. And it's been a couple months since I've had an issue come out. I want to have a giant size issue come out. And so he had a script that he gave me, and I started going like gangbusters working on this script, doing the artwork for it. And like all right, the timing's going to be right this time. I'm going to actually have something that's published and it's out there in the world. Well, I got about, I think it was like a 60-page book or something like that. I got about 48 pages into it. And then he went through a really nasty breakup.
Oh, no.
And so we put everything on hold. And then when he got his footing back under him, right after that, I went through a divorce.
Oh, my goodness.
So it just derailed everything. So somewhere I have a box that has 48 pages of a book that never came out.
Oh, man.
With a script that, that basically was the last nail in the coffin for that title, was that the artist left. We were going to do this giant size thing. Yeah, maybe now we can we can publish it later on.
There you go. Yeah, but I know how it is as an artist when we look at our old stuff and then we want to do it over because we can do it better now. So if you pulled those pages out, I bet you'd be like, maybe I'll change some things.
I looked at some pictures I have of some of the stuff. I took photos of it, and I looked at it and I go, he was asking me to change my style for his book.
Okay.
He wanted me to do more of like a Bruce Timm, Batman the Animated Series style of art. And I was always more of like John Byrne and Jim Lee mashup, I didn't, that wasn't my style. So, looking back on it, it looks kind of interesting the way that it was done, because I was fighting that inner artist that wanted to draw like John Byrne and Jim Lee, and trying to draw more like Bruce Timm. And so it has an interesting feel to it.
Well, that kind of segues well into what I wanted to ask you as far as your artistic influence. So you've already mentioned, Todd, and then now John Byrne and Jim Lee. Were those kind of your top guys that you were looking at back then, or were there others?
Yeah, John Byrne, Jim Lee, Neil Adams, Bill Sienkiewicz. The list goes on. There's a ton. Arthur Adams is a big one for me for a long time.
Huge.
There's so many great creators. Like, I started making a list one day and it was just like off the rails. Like, Bronze and I did a show. I co-host a show with my friend Bronze H. Nerd Christopher, and we did a show about our artists that inspire. And we're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize like how many. I started making a list and pulling some pictures and like just how many great artists there are that are.
It's incredible.
That I consider inspirations, or people that I try to mimic something from their style, or when I look at it, like a J. Scott Campbell, or any of those guys, I look at their style and I go, okay, well, how could I do that? And do I want to do that? What do I like about it? And so, Travis calls me the frenetic artist. He's like, there's always motion and movement in your art.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I can pick up on some of your influences too.
Right.
Yeah, Travis is inking that one piece that you did.
Oh, the X-23 piece. Yeah, that was it was for Heroes for Heroes.
Yeah, he was showing me a little bit of that when I had him on. It was really cool to see like how he was interpreting your work and everything.
Yeah, he told me that is the most stressful thing he's ever done.
I could tell I could tell he was a little nervous about it. I don't blame him.
He's not drawing right on the originals anyway, so it's okay. I mean,
it takes a little pressure. Yeah, it takes a little of the pressure off.
He'll send me he's like, look at this, and I'm like, I go. He knows that one of my big complaints is I've had people ink my stuff and they go, well, you lost the feel of this or the hands. what'd you do to my hands? That's not the way I drew those hands. And so he'll send me like some inking, and I go, I'll zoom in and I'll circle something. I go, what's going on here? And I go, here's what it looked like before, because I have photos of the pencils, and he'll be like, he's like, I gotta get back in there. I'm fixing that. It was just
like he wasn't stressed out enough, right?
right. But I'm trying to. He appreciates that. We anything we do with constructive criticism type of deal, and we both back and forth. We'll be like, something looks off here. And he'll do the same thing with me.
Well, and when you guys have been friends for so long, the importance of that communication and everything.
Right. Yeah. And also you got to be, you got to have a little apologetics in there. Like, hey, I'm, coming at it with it. Hey, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I just want to let you know, like this, or do you mind? Like,
but
a lot of times I'll take like he'll send me a picture of something, and then I will take like a red on my phone and kind of draw like, well, this kind of more like this, a little more, emphasis on the arch in the back, or,
Now, I'm assuming you're more of a traditional artist, at least judging by the pieces I've seen. It looks like you're going straight to the board and everything. These,
some of the stuff, I don't know if you've seen, well, some of the shorts that I just sent you were, there's some stuff in there that I did digitally, the fantasy stuff, for my tryout for, Wizards of the Coast, which I did it traditionally, and then I scanned it, and then I did a lot of the inking and the coloring. Permanence scares me. So like inking my own work and coloring my own work is really hard for me. But if I can hit undo, then, and so I really want to get more into that. I want to get a tablet, and that's one of my actually New Year's resolutions, is that I want to follow through with getting more of the tech. I did have a big Wacom tablet, but it was one of the old school ones where you're looking at the monitor, but you're drawing down here on your lap while you're looking at the monitor.
I have this beast.
I want to get one of those bad boys. We'll have to talk afterwards.
I will tell you, if I had to choose, I would go with the iPad Pro.
Okay.
That for me feels the most like actually drawing out of any. I've used every different type of digital drawing device, and it's really cool. But the trade-off is the screen is only so big.
Right.
But with being able to zoom in and everything, it's not a huge deal. So this is nice.
That's what I do like.
This thing, I can turn this, rotate it just like a comic book page and draw on it. So that's,
There's a piece I'm working on right now that
show me.
I want to I want to be able to I'm going to scan it, and I want to be able to zoom in, and so like the gal in the door, I want to zoom in and get all the detail of that, and actually have like the zombies climbing up the stairs next to her and everything.
And that's the benefit to inking digitally.
Yeah. So that's what I'm working on.
That looks really
good.
So
if you're watching my buddy Comic Collector Geek, I owe this to him as a part of a trade we did, and I got to finish it.
That's turning out amazing. He's going to be real happy.
I've gone above and beyond with the detail. I get engrossed in it and start. At one point, I was like looking at the guy that's getting the shot through the head there, and I was like, I could put like the helmet on him and have it flying off.
Yep.
But with no motion lines or anything, just the way that it's sitting, that it's come on, it's flying off, and so just getting it just right to where it looked like a photo, of like motion happening, so.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on the permanence thing. I usually, when I ink my own work, I go in digitally, because it's just like you said, having the undo is nice.
Right.
But I do try to push myself and do more inking traditional, but it's that whole thing. I don't want to ruin it. Like, I'll come up with something that looks so good in the pencil, and then I've ruined enough of my drawings when I started inking it. I'm like, I just can't bring myself to it.
Digital inking, you can just really up the contrast.
Yeah.
And then go in and clean up any messes and sludge, and you can actually use your pencil lines as an ink line without actually having to muck with it too much.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's kind of what so like I don't know if you've seen my stickers and stuff, but like this
Oh yeah.
This is basically pencils that have been, the contrast has been upped and then just turned
Yeah.
added a little more shading and stuff in there digitally and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
If you pencil tight, you can totally do that.
yeah, I find that when I'm doing, I'm constantly, if you watch any of my streams where I'm doing my art, I'm basically inking. I'm just going over and over and over the
Yeah.
same areas, and I'm adding more and more contrast and detail to the artwork. So it's basically inking with the pencil.
Yeah. Well, I know you've been building your YouTube channel up. So speaking of some of these drawing videos and things, like you've got a lot of awesome stuff on your YouTube, and it's
Well,
it's
thanks.
starting to grow, man. That's so cool to see.
I got a little crazy the first year. I think I looked at the number of videos. I was like, there was like, it's there almost 800 videos.
Hey, that's
Like that's like
impressive.
over 2 videos a day.
Yeah.
And on average, I mean, I wasn't actually doing 2 videos a day. I was doing them and scheduling them out, but
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of got a little crazy. And then I was doing the hashtag comic book shout out stuff and working with the community and all that. So my first year, in my first year, so they had the awards on the CBCS awards,
Yep.
and they have the new channel, and they were like, I would say, oh well, you could vote for me for new channel. They were like, no, you don't qualify. I'm like, no, this is my first. I started in January,
Yeah, they thought,
and
no way is he.
they're like, you're over 1,000 subscribers
Yeah.
already.
And
And
this many videos.
and they're like, you've got all these videos. They're all organized into playlists. They're so yeah.
I get the impression you don't, judging by your artwork, I get the impression you don't half-ass anything that you decide to do.
Um, I've learned a lot of stuff about myself. Actually, I just, I'll out myself. I just got diagnosed adult ADHD, so I
Yep.
do have a hyperfocus thing.
You and about
I
98.9% of the pro artists I've had on here.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it. When I went to the doctor, they were like, "Well, what would I ask you?" They're like, "What's?" I'm like, "Well, I'm having some issues and some going through some depression about like, I'm just feel really disorganized and like." I
Yep.
said, "Well, describe it." I'm like, "Well, I go in, I go in my kitchen and I'm pinballing back and forth like, oh, I need to do this. No, I need to do that. Oh, wait, I need to do this. I need to do that." And they're like, "We're gonna have you take a little test." So they
Yep.
gave me some paperwork. And I did the test, and they go, "Well, you scored in the 98th percentile for ADHD."
Yep. It's not surprising, man. A lot of creative people. It
Yeah.
goes with the territory.
Yeah, so I will like I'll do that. I'll get into like a thing where I'm hyper focused. I'm just massively on, and then I'll just kind of something will happen where I'll lose my spark for a little bit, and I get in this funk where I'm
Yeah.
just like can't do anything. Yeah.
Yep. But when you are inspired to do something, that's all you can do.
Yeah, and that's actually how I met Christopher Bronze Age Nerd. I was going through just kind of a funk, and I was like, we ran into each other at a show, and we started talking, and he's like, "How you doing, man?" And I was just like telling him like what was going on with me. He's like, if you ever have anything you need to talk about, just reach out. And so we started just chatting and stuff and everything. We became super good friends, super, super supportive, and just an awesome
Yeah.
guy. So
That's so cool when you have people like that in your life that you can, just have a casual conversation with, who are there to listen and can help kind of guide you through things, and also help you kind of realize that we all deal with certain things like that too,
right,
because especially as men, we're taught to kind of tough things out and not really talk about a lot of that stuff. So,
right,
and
yeah,
talking about it helps so much. Like that's one of the things that they encourage you to do is find somebody that you can talk to, whether that be another person or a therapist or whatever. So,
yeah. And I would say having known Travis for the amount of time that I have, being able to talk to him as well, same kind of thing.
yeah,
And I've got a lot of really great friends. Same thing with Mr. Akins, what's on the comic rack. Got to shout him out like, if I disappear for a while, he'll be, calling me or
yeah,
messaging me like, "Hey, are you okay? What's going on? Let's chat." It's
yep.
just a super cool guy.
Yeah, you kind of know, like when you're close with somebody, you know their patterns and things. So I
Yeah.
have people like that too. That's like, man, I haven't seen him post something in a while. I better check in because I have a feeling he's probably dealing with something. And
Right.
you gotta trust that instinct, you know.
And like I said, they say you're not a real YouTuber until you get burnout. So uh,
I'm not a
I,
real
I hit
YouTuber
burnout for a
yet.
little while there too. So I
Yeah,
mean, I was still putting stuff out on a pretty regular basis,
yeah,
but I was also like kind of really not demoralized. I guess maybe demoralized, but like I realized that I had hit the subscriber count and I had hit all these other markers, but a lot of what I was doing was to try to help other channels. There was a lot of short content, like 5 and 10 minute videos and that kind of stuff, and I just wasn't getting the watch hours where I was going to ever get monetized.
yeah,
And
yeah. I look at that monetization and I'm just like, how does anybody ever do that? Like 4,000 hours, or now I guess they're changing it to 3,000, but still, it's like, dang, that's a lot.
yeah, and then one night, it was in like maybe July or August. I was like, I'm just gonna hop on and do a live stream. I got some stuff from this little hidey hole that I get a lot of my golden age stuff from, and I'm like, I'm just gonna shoot messages to all my friends, like anybody that wants to hop on, here's a link.
Right.
And I just did a random live stream, and it went viral, and that shot me up. Just that one live stream shot me over like what I
Yeah.
needed for all my watch hours. It gave me the almost 3,000 watch hours of one video.
And that's all it takes. Yeah. It's just one
And,
thing like that popping off. And
and it, and it wasn't anything out of the normal. It was just like the normal kind of video that I would do,
yeah.
hanging out with my friends. We were just chatting and looking at books that we'd all picked up and talking about what was going on in the current climate for art and for the companies that are, we discussing concerns over AI and all
Oh,
that crazy
yeah.
things. And it
That's a
just
big
went
one.
viral. So
Well, relevant topic for nowadays, isn't it?
yeah, it is. I had that guy that won the Spawn contest.
Bro, I was just thinking the other day, whatever happened to that? Because none of
I
those
don't think they
cover.
ever actually put the book out. But
No,
I think
no.
there was some monetary thing to you won, right? Or something. You got
I
some
I don't know,
something.
but they never used any of the, because they were supposed to use like the top three or whatever for the to actually be covers on future books, and I haven't seen any of them.
Right. Yeah.
So
So
it's
I don't
like
know.
the easy thing was to just not say anything and let everybody forget. Maybe I remember when every post Todd made for like 3 months after that, all the comments were, "What about the AI guy who cheated?" And yeah,
Right.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
a little disappointed. I wish he had come out and put out a statement on that, because it was clearly in the rules, no AI.
Right.
But
Right.
then,
But
you
they
know,
didn't catch it. So I was like, it's on them that they didn't catch it. I don't know. But
yeah. Well, and then the guy was on there kind of antagonizing people.
well, he was saying, oh, yeah, he's like, yeah, well, I'm primarily known as an AI artist, but I do traditional art.
Yeah.
Everybody
And
was
then
like,
he
well, what
tried
are
to
he's
say
like,
that he tried to say that all his other stuff was AI, but the one that won wasn't. And then the
right.
person found his account and found that on there for the AI generation and posted it. He's like, yeah,
Yeah,
sure, buddy.
there's a um, website you can use too that you run an image through and it'll tell
Yep.
you the likeliness that it is AI. And it was
Yeah.
like that one was like 98.9% positive
Yep.
that it was AI.
Yeah, there was just a cover artist recently too that got canned. I think somebody for DC that
Yeah,
got
the guy that did the
fired.
Superman, right? He fudged up on the logo, the
Yep.
Superman logo.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
interesting. I'm sure the thing about it now is it's discernible as far as, whether it is AI or not. It's easier to tell than it probably is going to be in 5 or 10 years. Things are
right.
probably going to get real interesting.
But I haven't played. I've played a little bit with AI, just looking at like some of the like they have the funny little deals you can use on Instagram and stuff, where you can like
Yeah.
imagine me as a astronaut or whatever, right? That kind of thing. So I played around with that,
Yeah.
but I would never try to pass that stuff off as artwork. I thought it was interesting. Talking like we went up to Bronze and I went up to SummerCon. And we were talking to a lot of like the professional artists, and they're like, AI is a tool, whether we like it or not. It's a tool, and you know, back in the day, the people who made horse and buggy weren't real happy about the automobile industry, but you
Yeah.
got to get with the times or get left behind. And so these guys are like, I know there's some artists that are working with a closed system AI that only works with their art.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
so it only draws inspiration from their skill set.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it'll draw from
Um,
whatever you feed to it. So,
right.
like a lot of the larger ones right now, you can see like who they're feeding into it. Like it all looks like Art Germ or Alex Ross. Like it all has that certain look to it. But yeah, you can plug whatever you want in there. I remember when Kim Jong Gi passed away, and somebody fed a bunch of his stuff in there and was trying to pass it off as like the lost last works of Kim Jong Gi, and it looked like pretty close. Like
Hmm.
those of us who were diehard fans could tell the difference, but your average Joe might not have been able to. And that was,
Right.
you know, that was at the stage it was at a couple of years ago with just them plugging in some of his work. So,
See,
you
and
know,
I don't think that I would have an issue with if they were paying royalties to the people that they were pulling
yeah,
the skill
exactly.
and the style from, all those people who worked all those years to develop that skill and style.
Yeah, if you're
If there was
signing
like there,
off, if
okay,
you're
this is
signing
like,
off on it, that's one
yeah,
thing, right?
there's just 10% Neil Adams and 10%, J. Scott Campbell, and it's, you know, another 15% Jim Lee. And so we're paying these guys like, a royalty based off of the
Yeah,
use of their skill set. Maybe I could see that happening someday, maybe, but
yeah. I think it's going to affect the concept art community the most
right.
at the stage that it's at now, because you can put a pretty basic description of something in and get something pretty cool that further ideas and iterations can be created off of. So I think that's going to give a lot of concept artists trouble because it can
So
do that.
for people who do like storyboarding and that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can put in an, you know, Joe Blow's movie script idea for a character and describe it in certain detail, and it can give you a pretty cool design,
Right.
super quickly instead of somebody having to sit there and rough it out. So, you
Yeah.
know, and the other one is the like drone camera operators for films because it can do like drone footage like nobody's business
Right. Right.
just off a word, just entering words. So it's pretty crazy.
That's true.
Yeah, there's a
Right.
lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah. It's firing me because like my son wants me to do a bunch of character design for a video game that he's working on. I'm like, maybe I should just tell him to use AI.
yeah. I mean, it's a way. So going back to what the artists you talked to were saying about it's a tool, like you could. What if you have writer's block and you need to get past a point in your story and you ask it to give you ideas? Like I could
Right.
see it being used for that, or you are having trouble with the look of a character and you need to get a little inspiration, like I could see people doing that too. And you
Right.
know, I mean, I
Yeah.
remember when,
I'm not going to name names or anything, but I talked to people that were like, I use it for not for the main artwork, but
yeah,
for like backgrounds or for coloring.
yeah,
Um,
because then they'll just
so
go in there and tweak it, and
which I mean, I'll get some people up in arms about, colorists and stuff will probably be like, oh, taking our jobs away if they're
but
using it to do
remember
coloring.
how many people were using Google SketchUp to do their backgrounds in comics,
Right.
and still are, like using the
Right.
3D models for cars and things and then just drawing over them. And at the end of the day, the artist is trying to hit their deadline. So when there's things they can do, especially if they're on a monthly book or something, like I'm sure a lot of people are probably utilizing it and just not saying anything because it's controversial right now. I
Yeah, I've
mean,
noticed, like, I remember, even way back in the early 2000s, you see a lot of people will be using photo reference and then drawing over the top of it
Yep.
for
Greg
city
Land.
skylines or
Remember Greg Land's art? Like Greg Land's art was all like done that way.
I wasn't impressed. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Greg Land and to some extent, like I almost think like Greg Horn too.
Yeah.
The two Gregs both were I mean, not so much as Greg Land, but
Yeah.
there were some guys back then that I was like looking at their stuff going,
Yeah, and we still live in a world where people think drawing digitally is cheating too. So
Whereas that too, like I was just saying how I can digitally ink my stuff by upping the contrast and stuff, and inker would tell me that that's not real inking, and I'm taking their job away, right? So I mean, not that I'm any big artist that anybody needs to worry about, but if enough people think the same way that I think, I want to see. To me, I want to see the true lines that I put down. And I'm always fascinated by that. Like those classic artists, like they said, Jack Kirby never looked at the work that after people inked it.
Right.
And I'm like, I wonder if there was a reason for that, if it bothered him or, because I know a lot of, depending on the inker, you lose a lot of the detail.
He only had a couple of inkers that he really liked on his stuff, and he tended to use them a lot. So I think you're right. He just probably couldn't bring himself to see what it ended up looking like after the fact.
Right. Yeah.
And Jack Kirby, that's like a whole other subject we could probably talk about for 3 hours.
We used to, Rohan and his buddy Rohan.
They just did the controversial one.
Kirby and JP does not like Kirby at all. And so they had.
You always have to have you got to have at least one nonconformist in the group.
I mean, there's some stuff like Kirby. I will say that Kirby was not the greatest at drawing women.
Not all of Kirby's stuff was great.
No, but like you said, trying to hit a deadline, right?
Yeah.
And so like they were trying to make a paycheck and hit a deadline.
Yeah. 100%, especially with as many pages as he was doing and covers and everything else. Like,
prolific.
Not all of it is going to be hitting it out of the ballpark, but on average,
I have a box. I have that box, all that art that I did back in the day. Like I packed up my art studio like in like the early 2000s when we moved.
Right.
And I never really reset it up other than like I had a small art studio in our Astoria store where I would teach. I did lessons and stuff.
Nice.
Taught art. But there is a plethora of art that has not been looked at in like, now what are we, almost 20 years. So
Yeah.
I'm like, that would make an interesting video just to
That
be like
really
bringing it up
would.
and being like having a fresh set of eyes looking at it,
Absolutely.
So
I wanted to give you a chance to let everybody know where they can find you on YouTube and on the social media and all the different places they should be looking for you.
yeah, Bigby McFly, the comic guy, on YouTube. If you just type in Bigby McFly, which is Bigby McFly, MCFLY, you'll find me. It's an orange circle with my logo. And then I'm also Bigby McFly on Instagram.
Perfect. I love the consistency there.
It's just
Makes it easy for everybody to find you.
And if you absolutely have to email me, it's bigbymcfly@gmail.com.
Man, too easy. Well, man, I appreciate this impromptu session we put together, man. You had a little spare time. We've been trying to make this happen, and I had a little bit
about it.
it's all good. I had a little free time, a little extra time after recording my other podcast today. So this ended up being a very, very happy surprise here today to be able to chat with you. And I would definitely love to chat again and spend some more time talking about all the things we love in the future, man.
Yeah, well, the door's open the other way too. I might have to have you on my channel.
I would love it. Travis mentioned something about you guys do some kind of thing where you draw together on there or something like that.
It's pretty impromptu.
He said it's very, well, my
Fridays.
Fridays.
At like, 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. We're like, hey, I feel like drawing. You want to come hang out? And then we're drawing. And
Just so you know, my Fridays are usually pretty open unless I have a podcast book. So make sure you hit me up next time you guys do one of those if it falls on a Friday.
We get like a bunch of people, actual Dracula. I don't know if you know him, but
I've seen some of his stuff. Yeah.
He jumps in. Bleecker Street Comics, he's come in and done artwork as well. Chris
Nice.
Broad's Age Nerd. So yeah, a bunch of people just come in and hang out and do art, and or just come in and chat. People who don't do art, but they come in and they're talking about the books they've just picked up, and they're commenting on the art that people are doing. So
very cool, man. Well, listen, hang out here with me for a moment while I do my outro spiel. And everybody, make sure you go subscribe to Mr. Bigby McFly on all the social media. Email the heck out of him since he gave it away. Let him know how much you like this episode. As always, I encourage you guys to watch this on YouTube. We always have artists on here that have really cool work to share, or comic collectors and sellers that show off their prized books and everything. I'm sure you have one laying nearby that you could show off and make everybody jealous.
But, I will show you the prize of
here we go.
2024.
See, this is why I tell. Yep, Fantastic Four 1. Jealous. I'm so jealous.
I got this from Travis, actually.
Nice.
So
that's amazing.
We'll have to talk about the story about that next time.
We will. And it goes right with the Jack Kirby territory.
It does.
Awesome, everybody. Well, make sure you check it out on YouTube so you can get jealous too, looking at that Fantastic Four. Happy New Year to everyone, and make sure to keep it nerdy, everybody.
Thanks, James.